see who Senator Rob Portman trusts, our next guest, our lead guest, our friend. Senator Portman, first of all, welcome back, sir. Appreciate it.
Larry, great to be on with you, as always.
You think the Republicans are to blame? That's my first question. That's what Joe Biden said over the weekend. Republicans are to blame.
Yeah.
Democrats have both houses of Congress and the White House and the reconciliation, but nonetheless, you are to blame, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's discouraging because we find ourselves in a situation where the people I represent are having to pay more and more for everything. The paycheck goes less and less far, and yet they're talking about more and more taxes, and particularly on small businesses where most people work in Ohio. And no, it's not Republicans who are to blame. It's policy choices. They made some very specific policy choices during the campaign. They said they were going to discourage fossil fuel production. They have, and look what results. When you cut supply of fossil fuels and you have demand coming out of COVID, you're going to have high prices, and that's what's happened. So you got $4.85 per gallon average right now, and that was a policy decision. The stimulus package, you remember, Larry, back in March of last year, a number of us, Democrat and Republican, because it included Larry Summers, famously, the former Treasury Secretary on the Democratic side, and others said, this is going to overheat the economy. In fact, a bunch of us Republicans went down to the White House to say, slow down here. Let's focus this thing on COVID. Let's not do a huge stimulus package. That's not what the economy needs right now. The Congressional Budget Office was already telling us, as were other nonpartisan groups, hey, this economy is picking up quite nicely. But that big increase in spending caused a lot more demand and is the reason for the inflationary problems that we see today, in combination with less supply, which has happened partly because of COVID, but largely, again, on the energy side, because of a policy decision to say we're going to have less supply and more demand. So, yeah, Larry, it's easy to blame other people, I suppose, but you got to look in the mirror sometimes, and it's these policy changes that have made the difference.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you and I are both raising these past mistakes. We've raised them before, but I think it's worth repeating only because the president has the goal to blame others, all right? Republicans, oil CEOs, independent gas owners, gasoline station owners, COVID, Putin, and all the rest of it. He just keeps doing this. Senator Portman, you have been in politics, and I will add successfully, for a long time. You've been in the executive branch, you were budget director, you were a trade rep, you're a House member, you're a senator. I'm sorry you're retiring, by the way, truly. But have you ever seen anything quite like this? And let me just add, Bill Clinton had a little bit of this 25 years ago, but he looked around at the landscape and a congressional election whipping, and he changed. He reset. This fella doesn't want to change and doesn't want to reset, and is really, in some sense, doubling down on spending and taxing and radical climate change. You ever see anything like it?
Yeah. Well, no, particularly given the campaign. Remember, during the campaign, he ran as the person who wanted to work with Republicans to get things done. He ran against Bernie Sanders, who was his primary opponent, and said, look, you're on the far left. I'm more a guy that kind of has learned how to work over the years with the other side. I want to be the conciliator. I want to heal the country. And then you look at the policies, and unfortunately the policies have led us down a path that, as you say, is really radical compared to what he campaigned on, and certainly in terms of its impact on inflation, the economy, energy prices particularly. There's a direct link there. So yeah, no, this is really discouraging. And what's terrible about it to me is that there was an opportunity there to work together and to try to come up with something that made sense to deal with COVID, and then get back to the pro-growth policies that, remember, before COVID hit, we had incredible economic growth. We had wage gains over the previous 19 months of 3% per more every single month. People I represent were feeling good. Why? Because their paycheck was going up way higher than inflation, and they had the opportunity to get ahead in life. So that's what we've got to get back to. And that comes from pro-growth policies. They don't need to be partisan policies, just policies that make sense for the American economy. And that's not what's happened.
How about raising taxes on small business pass-throughs? What you make of that?
That's the one that scares me the most, because that's where most people work in America. That's where most of the people who are middle and lower income work. And those are the folks that are going to be hit really hard. Pass-throughs, for those who don't follow this stuff, 90-some% of American businesses are pass-throughs. They don't pay taxes as corporations, they pay taxes as individuals. The owners pay the taxes. And if you go after those people, what are they going to do? Well, all the studies say the same thing, including, by the way, a Joint Committee on Taxation study that was released just today that analyzes the impact of the tax increases in the so-called Build Back Better legislation. And it says about 31 billion of it comes out of the pockets of people who are low income, middle income. Why? Because it hurts the workers and it hurts the consumers. So don't go after small business. I mean, this is a huge mistake. It's something that's going to help to fund more spending, which is going to cause more demand, which is going to cause more inflation. But it's also going to hurt the very people whose wages right now are not keeping up with inflation. Don't dock their wages further, and don't continue to make it harder for them to make ends meet.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part of that story on the wages are going up. People are making more, but they're buying less because of the higher inflation, and real wages are declining. And look at, what about the other part? They have some pretty hefty corporate tax increases in here. I mean, we learned from the corporate tax cut years back, the Trump tax cuts, that the middle income, the blue collar folks, were the biggest beneficiaries of dropping the rate down from 35 to 21 and immediate expensing and easy repatriation. So now they want a 15% minimum tax on book value, right, which takes away, that's not IRS, it doesn't include credits and deductions. You know this very well, I know. And they also want it on the international side. They want a 15% global minimum tax, which, by the way, even the European Union hadn't figured out yet. I mean, what's that going to do to jobs?
Well, it's going to hurt jobs, and you're absolutely right. The 3% wage growth for 19 straight months that I talked about earlier, in my view, was largely as a result of the tax reforms, also regulatory relief. But bottom line is, it helped the people who we want to help the most. It was the, again, lower and middle income workers who had the biggest increase in their wages. That's what you want to do, and that's what happened. Just the opposite will happen if these taxes are put in place. And by the way, other countries around the world don't apply that minimum tax. So it means that American workers are going to be the ones who are disadvantaged. That doesn't make any sense. We want to encourage more American products to go overseas. We want to encourage American companies to be engaged in the global economy because it creates jobs in America. That's the whole point. It creates good paying jobs in America. And if you put in place a punitive tax on U.S. businesses that's not on European businesses, that's not on Japanese businesses, that's not on Chinese businesses, that hurts American workers. So I do worry about this, Larry, and my hope is that we can keep this from happening as we have successfully over the last 18 months. And if we don't, I think this inflation is going to get worse, and I think we're going to see less economic growth, and I think we're going to see wages for, again, the lower and middle income workers continue to stagnate as compared to inflation, because inflation is going to be relatively high, wages relatively low. Well, let's get back to growth. Let's get back to giving people the chance to get ahead in life.
Well, I love growth. I'm begging Joe Manchin not to break my heart. That's the way I'm looking at this. I'm just begging him not to break my heart. Senator, before I let you go, I want to ask you about this Middle East trip, the Saudi Arabian trip. But I want to ask you about just two things quickly. In this Washington Post op-ed that was filed over the weekend, Ms. Biden in this thing says, after my predecessor reneged on a nuclear deal that was working, Iran has passed laws mandating the rapid acceleration of the nuclear program. Nuclear deal that was working? Really? Do we believe that? I mean, as far as I knew, Iran all through this period, with deal, without deal, refused to allow proper inspections and had been enriching more and more of the uranium. Working? Really? That was working?
Yeah, no, it didn't work. And it didn't work in part because, frankly, other countries in the world were not helping to be able to put in place a multilateral sanctions on Iran. In fact, you had some countries who were dealing with Iran. So Iran wasn't feeling the pressure. And no, the legislation that was passed here in Congress, which said that we should not move forward with this deal, we didn't get enough votes. We didn't get 60 votes, but we got a majority, was because we did not feel as though the agreement was going to be effective at doing what the administration at that time was saying. And that was back during the Obama years. And unfortunately, we were correct. And you have to only ask the other countries in the region, including the Arab countries in the Gulf region, including Israel, what they thought of it. And, it's unfortunately, that agreement had to be renegotiated because it was not working. So that's what the administration ought to be doing now rather than going back to the old agreement. So we'll see. But, what's interesting about this trip, Larry, to me, is that he's going over there to ask them to produce more oil so that we have, more fossil fuel oil and gas being developed in those countries, which, by the way, is not done in the same kind of environmental standards that we have, so it's not as clean as ours. And yet here at home, somehow we can't produce, and therefore more dependent on these other countries, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or other countries that you don't want to be dependent on, like Iran. So I think there's going to be a certain disconnect there when at home we're saying we're going to discourage fossil fuel development, and there we're saying we would like you to produce more to be able to send to us by ship in terms of liquefied natural gas or oil, which makes no sense. A lot more CO2 emissions will be occurring as a result.
But, Senator, it's your fault. It's the Republicans' fault. All of it.
Yeah. We're in the minority. We're trying, but we don't have the majority in the Senate or the House right now. I think that'll change in another several months here. But for now, we have to try to put the guardrails on to try to keep things from getting worse. And reconciliation, you recall, Larry, is one of these things where we have no say. In other words, the Democrats can do it on their own under the budget rules. And my sense is that they're going to move ahead aggressively with whatever they can get done. My hope is that, we can keep that from happening, because, again, we've been successful in the last almost 18 months since the last time they did this. And my hope is that they'll see again that this does not make sense for the American people. And let's give this economy a chance to get back on its feet by keeping demand under control, increasing supply. That's the key, is getting supply up.
Yes.
Let's not just rely on the Fed, dampening demand by higher and higher interest rates. That hurts everybody. Let's have a soft landing here, but we can't do it with these policies that they're talking about putting in place.
Well, sir, the cavalry's coming. I just don't know if it'll get here soon enough. Anyway, Senator Rob
Thanks,
Portman,
Larry.
appreciate it very much, sir.